Hello, welcome to Culture TV. In this video, we'll learn how to talk about possession in Russian, and to do that, we'll use certain adjectives and pronouns. Stay tuned. So this is lesson 43 of our online program, Let's Speak Russian. So as you may have gathered already, possessive adjectives and pronouns are used to indicate possession, i.e. when something belongs to someone. In English, we have words like my, your, his, her, and so on. All of these words here are adjectives because they're describing a noun. My pen, your house, and so on. Yes? Now, because these are adjectives, remember that in Russian, adjectives always have to agree with the noun that they're describing by gender, number, and case. This therefore also applies to possessive adjectives. Now, we also have possessive pronouns, and these are words like mine and yours. This is not the same as an adjective. Remember that a pronoun replaces a noun. So you can say it's mine, but you can't say it's my. You can say my house, but you can't say mine house, okay? In Russian, though, we do not differentiate between the two. We use the same words. That, of course, is good news. Right, now let's learn these possessive pronouns then. As you can see, we're going to have to look at a table. You can either memorize this table, or what I recommend is you just try to spot the patterns that are going on. All you have to do is look at the endings. It is actually quite simple. So we're going to have the gender and then all the pronouns. We're going to have masculine, feminine, and neuter, and of course plural as well. So this table will give us all the pronouns which change depending on gender and number. But as you can see, we're not looking at case just yet. Because really, if you want to learn all the pronouns for case as well, you're going to have to memorize or, well, learn this table another 5 times for the remaining 5 cases. And that is quite a lot. So for now, we're only going to focus on the nominative case, okay? So here are all the pronouns. These are the subject pronouns. They're not possessive. Now let's look at what they would be for masculine nouns. So if you want to describe a noun belonging to you, and this noun is masculine, you would use these words. Мой, твой, его or ее, наш, ваш, and их. Once more. Мой, твой, его, ее, наш, ваш, их. Okay? Now for feminine nouns. Моя, твоя, его, ее, again, наша, ваша, их. So you can see here that we're not changing the possessive pronouns for third person at all. And in fact, they never change. They don't change for gender, number, or case. Great. That really is good news, because it means that you now only need to focus on 4 rows of this table, and it will make it much easier to learn all the pronouns for cases later as well. So его, ее, and их, they always stay the same. Case, gender, and number. Okay? Now let's have a look at the neuter ones. Моё, твоё, again, его, ее, наше, ваше, их. And finally for plural, мои, твои, его, ее, наши, ваши, их. Now pay attention here. For the first 2 ones, for мои and твои, the stress falls on the last syllable, so on the I. However, for наши and ваши, it's on the a, on the first syllable. Just remember that. So as you can see, it's not really that hard. The stem remains the same for everything, so more, dvo, nash, vash, and then the endings just change. And to be honest, the endings kind of correspond to the gender anyway. Many adjectives that describe feminine nouns will always end in ya. So yes, just make sure that you're happy with this table, and now let's have a look at some example sentences. Это моя улица. Это моя улица. This is my street, or here is my street. Why is it моя? Well, because улица is feminine. It's a feminine noun. It ends in the letter a. Therefore, the possessive pronoun has to agree with this. They have to match up. So it's моя улица. Где твоя книга? Где твоя книга? Where is your book? Again, книга is feminine, that's why it's твоя. We have this sentence. Ваши волосы очень красивые. Ваши волосы очень красивые. Now, we saw волосы and the adjective красивые in lesson 31. In fact, you should have done it for your homework. And hopefully you remember that in Russian, very often, in most cases, hair remains plural. So therefore, we also have to make the adjective красивые, beautiful, agree with the plural noun. And the possessive pronoun ваши also has to be plural. That's why it's ваши волосы очень красивые. Please make sure that you're happy with making adjectives agree. That is a very important topic. That lesson 31, is so crucial. I really do hope you've managed to get the grasp of it. If not, please do rewatch it. It's a very important topic. Now, in Russian, probably you would hear this sentence instead. У вас очень красивые волосы. And that means you have beautiful hair. You would hear this more common in Russian. That just sounds a little bit better. But that's not the point. That's a bit of a side note there. Generally, we're just looking at possessive pronouns. So, ваши. And one thing I forgot to mention, well, you should know it anyway, is that although we have the letter I after the sh in ваши and nasze, we still pronounce it as an sound, okay? We never ever write the letter after the letters sh, zh, and a few other consonants as well. We're about to see that in just a moment. Okay, so you hopefully know how to make adjectives agree with plural nouns, and you know the possessive pronouns in the plural form as well. But the ultimate question is, how do we make a noun plural? And to be honest, I haven't shown you this properly yet. Maybe I should have done this earlier, but either way, here it is now. It's just a few rules that you have to remember. So just again to remind you, if anyone is unsure, the plural of a noun, once again, just shows that there is several, so a number of that noun. There are many of them. So apples, cars, pencils, and so on. Please be aware though that this is not used with quantities. For example, some flour or a lot of water. See, look, we don't say some flowers, a lot of waters, we just keep it in its singular form, okay? It's the same in Russian. Now, you're familiar with this already, so I'm not going to dwell on about that. Now, one important point, and I have to make this clear, do not use the following rules that we're going to see for pluralizing nouns with counting numbers. So in other words, when you're counting 2 cars, 5 pens, and so on. And in fact, it's not just numbers, but any words that talk about quantity. So a lot of, or many, or even no, when there is an absence of something. There we have to use the genitive case. And we're going to learn this very, very soon. This is a future lesson. For now, though, we're going to look at pluralizing nouns when they are the subject of the sentence, okay? So again, we're just going to look at another table. Masculine, feminine, and neuter. Here are the general rules. If a masculine noun ends in a consonant, you just add on the letter U. If it ends in the y sound, you just add on I. If it's a soft sign, you also add on I. For feminine nouns, the ya changes to I. A changes to either I or U, and this depends on the preceding consonant. Remember what I just said about sh and zh? Yes, well that applies here. You cannot write the letter U after sh or zh, alright? And there are some other consonants as well, apart from these. That's just a bit of spelling. Those are just some spelling rules. You don't need to remember them for now. If I were you, I wouldn't worry about it for now, because we're not really learning to spell perfectly in Russian. We're learning to speak Russian, aren't we? So yeah, it doesn't really make a difference because we pronounce it exactly the same. We write it down differently then. And finally, the soft sign changes to I as well. And for neuter, or usually changes to a, and ye usually changes to ya or a. Again, this is a spelling rule as to which one of these letters you use. It depends on the preceding consonant, okay? Now, very important that you understand that exceptions do exist, and I want to make this clear because in the past I've given you rules and I've said that, well, exceptions are there but they're not that common. Well, with pluralizing nouns, there are quite a few exceptions. They are quite frequent. And one example is that when you have a masculine noun that ends in a consonant, sometimes you will add on the letter a instead of the letter u. You do just get that sometimes, and you just have to be aware of that. Don't be, surprised or overwhelmed if you see things like that. That just happens. Exceptions are common in Russian language. So let's do a bit of practice pluralizing nouns then. Here's the word машина, which is a car. How would you change this to plural? Yes, it would be машины. Улица would be улицы. Okay? A changes to I. What about this word? Вход. Вход. We learned this in lesson 30. It means an entrance. The plural would actually be входы. Входы. So the rule is the same. We just add on letter I. The thing that changes here is the stress. So it was вход. Now it's входы. Okay? With the word выход, it becomes выходы. So the stress remains the same. And again, these are just exceptions. I can't give you a concrete rule as to stress and when it changes and when it doesn't. You just have to get used to hearing the Russian language, and eventually you'll just be doing the stress correctly yourself. Just please stick with it. Выходы is the plural of выход. Окно, this is a new word. This means a window. It's neuter, and the plural would be окна. Окна. Again, the stress changes. Поле, a field. Поля, поля, fields. Аптека becomes аптеки. Okay, аптеки. Станция is a station. Станции, many stations. Неделя is a week. Недели, many weeks. Месяц, месяцы. Okay? And so on and so on. Now that we're here and I've shown you the plurals for вход and выход, I might as well show you a Russian idiom. It goes like this. Знать все входы и выходы. What does this mean? Try and translate this. Yes, знать means, of course, to know. Все means all. Now, I haven't been mentioning words like все for quite a while, and all those words like все that we learnt in lesson 25, you really need to be happy with them and you need to be able to use them properly. So please do revisit lesson 25 if you need to. I will be talking about them more and more in the coming lessons. So yes, this means all, and then входы и выходы, entrances and exits. So literally this means to know all the entrances and exits. And the equivalent in English would probably be something like to know all the ins and outs. In other words, to be an expert in a certain field. However, in Russian we tend to use this whenever somebody is an expert or knows a lot about applying for a job or getting a promotion and things like that to do with careers. And this is when you apply for a job, let's say, and you want to get a job, but not the typical way, not the standard way, but you actually, avoid the law somehow. You use a few little techniques and strategies and little tips that are, strictly speaking, maybe even illegal, and you shouldn't do that. And maybe this kind of slightly reflects the corruption that exists in Russia, whereby people often get jobs and promotions through acquaintance or through other little external factors, so they don't do it the proper way. And a person who knows a lot about this, knows about how to get a job without having to go through a particular process, but you can just do it quickly via acquaintance and so on. In other words, all the techniques that you have to use. That is, знать все входы и выходы. And yes, corruption in Russia is not a major issue, but it is definitely there. And maybe the presence of idioms like this kind of reflects that. But yeah, just an interesting little side note there. You can use this idiom if you like. You might hear Russians use it. It is quite rare, but because it includes the vocabulary that we know, I thought I might as well show you. Anyway, let's move on to some other practice. Let's now try and include the possessive pronouns. So how in Russian would you say your street? And your as in formal you. Yes, ваша улица. Ваша улица. What about your streets? So many streets. Ваши улицы. Yes, ваши улицы. What about your pharmacy? Твоя аптека. And then твои аптеки. Его студент. This means his student. Remember, by the way, that this letter G here is pronounced as a V. Very often in Russian, when you have a letter G in between two vowels, so in this case between a Y and O, it is pronounced as the letter V. This is just an exception. This is just a matter of the way we pronounce this. Его. Okay? Another example is сегодня, which of course means today. Его студент, his student. How would you say his students? Yes, его студенты. Его студенты. Remember that the possessive pronoun does not change. We just pluralize student. It ends in a consonant. It's a regular plural. We just add on студенты. Наша площадь, our square, наши площади. Now I need to show you two words which have irregular plurals, and these are important because these are frequently used words. So, мой друг is my friend. By the way, this is a male friend, okay? That's why it's мой. Plural would be мои друзья. Мои друзья, okay? Pay attention, this is an irregular plural. And then finally we have этот человек, this person. Now in English, person also has an irregular plural. We say people, yes? Person and people. In Russian though, it's even more irregular. It's a completely different word. It's actually эти люди. Эти люди. There we go. So please do remember these last two words because you'll see them a lot and you'll need to use them yourself as well. Otherwise, for homework, can you please just practice making plurals and practice using possessive pronouns as much as you can. You can always leave comments if you want them checked, or you can email us. That's perfectly fine. All of the details are below in the description. So yes, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Any feedback as well. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time. Goodbye.